Hey, what is up guys? Ross Thomas here for the Brotographer.com, and today I've got for you my review of the zhiyun-tech Crane 2 with a 1DX Mark II on it. So if you haven't watched my review of the Tilta Gravity G1, click down in the description, there'll be a link to it, you can check that out. However, on the G1 I was not able to get a full range of motion out of the 1DX Mark II on that gimbal, so I was curious to see if I could get full range of motion, maybe even underslung mode, with the Crane 2. Now, shout out to Brandon Washington and Matthew Vandeput for helping me balance the 1DX Mark II on the Crane 2. There'll also be a link in the description to Brandon Washington's video where he explains how to do that. There is some modification required in order to get the 1DX Mark II onto the Crane 2, dropping one of the plates, just like you would on the Ronin M. But if you're able to do a little work with Allen wrenches and don't mind doing that, and balancing the 1DX Mark II is completely possible. So two of the biggest features on the Crane 2 are going to be its maximum payload of 7 pounds and also its manual follow focus ability. Now, I didn't really have any need for the follow focus because I'm using the 1DX Mark II on it, which has amazing dual pixel autofocus. If you are a Canon user, however, you may find this needed on other cameras other than the 1DX Mark II. But for me, the main feature is that maximum payload and also the range of motion that I could have with my 1DX Mark II on a one-handed gimbal. So the Crane 2 has a few different things on it that I haven't seen in any other gimbals. One of those things is a screen. On that screen, you can change a ton from the on gimbal menu, from the sensitivity of the movement to whether you have a small camera, a medium-sized camera, or a very heavy camera on it. With the 1DX Mark II, I have it set to the heaviest setting, and a whole bunch of other things. From the control wheel, you can change aperture, shutter speed, on a whole bunch of other cameras. However, right now, I can't do that on the 1DX Mark II or on my Sony cameras, so I still do that manually. However, I'm expecting a firmware upgrade in the future to be able to change my aperture and shutter speed with my Sony cameras. zhiyun-tech also has an awesome app that lets you change the deadband, the speed, and all those other things, just like many of the other gimbal manufacturers do. As I've done with any other gimbal I've used, I set all the camera's parameters and speeds to the lowest possible setting and set the deadband to something quite large so that the camera does not jerk while I move it just a little bit. Getting that nice slow movement is going to help you achieve that cinematic look that we use gimbals for. So because of the Crane 2's ability to get full range of motion with the Canon 1DX Mark II on it, I simply have to compare it to the Ronin M. I've been a Ronin M user for a little over a year now, and it is a two-handed configuration, so it's a little bit different. But here are some pros and cons of the Crane 2 versus the Ronin M. So the first pro of the Crane 2 compared to the Ronin M is the fact that you can set it down on the included tripod stand. I can't say this enough, with the Ronin M, it gets really heavy with the 1DX Mark II on it, and not having the ability to set it down unless you turn the entire gimbal off or put it on its proprietary stand is mind-numbing, and your arms just get crazy tired super fast. I don't have one of those rigs that allows me to take the weight off of my arms, so my arms get burnt out extremely fast. Second, the Crane 2 is able to be thrown in a bag, fully assembled mind you. When the Crane 2 gets to you, aside from the mini tripod stand on the very bottom, it's fully assembled, which is really cool and unlike any other gimbal that I've used. It doesn't require you taking the pieces, setting them up, putting them on, then putting the camera on. You literally take it out of the box, put the tripod on, throw the camera on, and you're good to go. So if you have a backpack, you can probably even keep your 1DX Mark II on it or other camera on it and just pull it out and use it. Another pro of the Crane 2 compared to the Ronin M is the fact that you can put it in underslung mode. Let me get it right here for you. So with the Ronin M, you have to put it into briefcase mode, which is really uncomfortable and it still gets really heavy. But with the Crane 2, you're able to swing it away from the motor and you can put it in underslung mode very easily. Now the 1DX Mark II does not have a flip out LCD screen, so it can be hard to see it. However, if you hold it in front of you just a little bit, you can see the screen really easily. So putting it into underslung mode is a real joy with the Crane 2. Now, getting it out can sometimes be tricky. I've had some problems with it, but it seems like if you do it slowly and don't jerk it up, it's really easy to get out of underslung mode. So keep that in mind. So the Crane 2 in my mind only has two, really maybe 1.5 cons compared to the Ronin M. First is the two-handed configuration of the Ronin M is a lot more stable than the one-handed configuration of the Crane 2. When you're running or walking really fast, that Z-axis like this is going to pick up a lot more movement. And mind you, it's not a ton of movement, but it will pick up a lot more movement than a two-handed configuration would. Where I say it's kind of 1.5 cons is that zhiyun-tech sells a two-handed grip that you can slap around the center pole that makes it a lot more stable. Probably. I don't have it, but just the fact that the Ronin M is much more stable, I guarantee that the two-handed grip from zhiyun-tech will make the Crane 2 a lot more stable. The second one is the fact that you're not able to really mount a ton of accessories. This is one of the major cons. However, you're probably not buying a one-handed gimbal for putting a ton of mic packs or external monitors onto. So take this for what it's worth. However, you're not able to put things like a monitor, a mic pack, a shotgun mic, stuff like that onto the Crane 2. There are other one-handed gimbals that have more 1/4-20 threads to slap stuff onto the side. However, the Crane 2 does not. It does have the 1/4-20 thread on the bottom of it, but aside from that, it doesn't have really any mountable places for external accessories. So as far as modes on the Crane 2, they're going to be basically just the same as any other one-handed 3-axis gimbal. They're going to be follow, which follows on the pan and the tilt axis. Pan follow, which is following just on the pan axis and it doesn't move up and down, much like this. And the chicken head mode, which you move it in every direction and it doesn't move at all. Now, one of the cooler things with those 3 modes on the Crane 2 is the fact that the little screen on the back tells you which mode you're in. So you won't forget. Let's say you keep it on, put it down, go do something else and come back. You're not gonna start your shot and forget which mode you're in and do a wrong move. You can just look on the back and easily tell which mode you're in. So that's a definite pro for the Crane 2 compared to other gimbals because of that little screen on the back. Now, as far as battery life, I believe that they do say the Crane 2 will get about 10 hours. I have not fully exhausted the batteries with the Crane 2 and the 1DX Mark II combination on there, so take that assumption for what it's worth. It's probably going to be a little bit less than 10 hours, but they do advertise 10 hours, and I would think that it would get pretty darn close with a smaller mirrorless camera like a Sony a7R III. Now, one thing that's become kind of a big deal for me when I get new gimbals to test is, do they stay level on the horizon? And it's a major, major pet peeve for me. Now, when I got this out of the box, it did have a little bit of an issue with that. However, I was able to do a firmware upgrade that zhiyun-tech had, and it took care of it right away. So even with the 1DX Mark II, my horizon has stayed very level and it does not have a tendency to drift off like some of the other gimbals I've tested. So another major pro, even with a huge camera and lens combination like the 1DX Mark II and 16-35 f4. So at the end of the day, how does the Crane 2 perform? And in my opinion, it performs excellent. Once again, just the fact that I'm able to get full range of motion out of the 1DX Mark II, get it into underslung mode, have the motors be nice and strong so that it doesn't tilt off the horizon line is amazing. Running around with it in the one-handed setup is going to get heavy over time just because it's such a heavy camera and lens combination. And the Crane 2 itself is not the lightest one-handed 3-axis gimbal that I've tested. But all in all, it performed very well. Now, compared to something like the Tilta Gravity G1, which is one of my favorite 3-axis gimbals, it does hold a pound less. However, the fact that you're able to get full range of motion again out of the 1DX Mark II kind of makes up for that. So if I need to do basic movements with a heavier camera and lens combination, maybe even try to get a 70-200 on there, I might try the Gravity G1. However, with the 16-35 f4L lens that has image stabilization as well, it's completely fine and I'm able to get that full range of motion out of it. Now again, I didn't use the follow focus because I have amazing dual pixel autofocus on the Canon 1DX Mark II, but I am looking forward to the firmware upgrade that allows me to use follow focus with Sony cameras and lenses. One pipe dream that I would love to have, and I have no clue how this would work, so take it for what it's worth. I would love to use my new Sony a7R III with a Metabones adapter and a Canon lens like the 85mm 1.2L. That lens is wonderful, the bokeh is wonderful, and you could create a really ethereal feel to some of your videos with that. If zhiyun-tech could figure out how to do the follow focus into the Sony camera and have it control focus in video mode with the Metabones Mark IV or Mark V adapters and Canon or any EF glass, it would be the tech breakthrough of the century, in my opinion, for amateur filmmakers like myself. So once again, I don't even know if that's possible, but that would be something that would be absolutely legendary. And I would never put this gimbal down if that was the case. Now, I apologize for not talking about a ton of different cameras and lenses on the Crane 2, but man, I am just so stoked to get full range of motion out of the 1DX Mark II. Having the ability to get it into underslung mode and back up to pan left and right, tilt up and down with full range of motion is legendary and something that I haven't had before other than on my Ronin M. So having that ability in a one-handed gimbal has been fantastic. There are a ton of other reviewers out there that have reviewed the Crane 2 with smaller cameras, so go ahead and check those out. But man, if you're a 1DX Mark II owner and you want to get some cinematic footage, absolutely look into the Crane 2. It is highly recommended. So if you enjoyed this review, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe. We are almost at 2,000 subscribers and I am so thankful. Check me out on Instagram and also thebrotographer.com. I am Ross, editor-in-chief of thebrotographer.com, and I will see you in the next one.